Hello, my name's Tip Cullen. I'm a Royal Marines Commando, not former quite, and now a professional actor.
Hi, I'm Jamie Campbell. I'm an ex-regular officer and a reservist now. I'm a Soldier On junkie, and I am the assistant producer of Soldier On in Toronto.
Hi, I'm Kirk Bowett. I am a limbless veteran of 16 years. I left my arm in the Middle East. I'll go back and get it one day. And I'm an actor on the play Soldier On. You are watching Q&A with Lady K.
This play is produced by the Soldiers Arts Academy. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization and how you each became involved?
You start.
I'll start then. I got involved with Soldiers Arts Academy. The play Soldier On was already up and running, and we were doing a piece of work at Shakespeare's Globe in London, and it was 100 years from the ending of the First World War, and we done an ensemble type piece of work in the Sam Wanamaker stage at Shakespeare's Globe, and it was incredible. And to have that opportunity as a new, older actor was incredible. And Soldiers Arts Academy have assisted my new career, but also they give this well-being and understanding of issues that you get in transformation from the military into civilian life, but also those that maybe find that transformation more difficult due to mental or physical injuries happening in conflict or in normal civilian life. But the Soldiers Arts Academy just gave me the access, and it's been wonderful.
Thanks, Tip. I served for 22 years, and I left the army after... Sprague, thank you. 22 out of 33. Left the army because I told myself I'd done everything I wanted to do. That was the first thing. And I also left because I told myself as a staff officer I was never going to have the same proximity to soldiers and officers again. And I went through a little bit of a troubled time. I fell into the industry, which was fine. And through contact in the film industry, I was hooked up with Jonathan Guy Lewis, Johnny. And we met for a coffee in London. He gave me the script, and I just fell in love with it. And that's how I entered the Soldier Arts Academy. And I found that on that first night in Chelsea and London, I was back with my tribe, with my clan, and I realised that actually all the stuff that I told myself that the reason why I was leaving the army, I missed dreadfully. And when I found the Soldiers Arts Academy, I found it again, and that's why I'm still with it. Kirk.
Oh, thank you. So my story is I'm the most junior. I served 16 years in the infantry. I served in Northern Ireland, the Middle East, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and limbless veteran now. I left my arm behind in the desert, and I joined an organisation called BLESMA, which is the British Limbless Ex-Servicemen's Association, as well as Cassidy. There's 3,500 members within the charity, dating back to the Second World War, and we're all going through our own adversities. And during my recovery process, I recovered physically very quickly, but then I suffered marriage breakdown, post-traumatic stress, homelessness, and my life pretty much fell apart. And I went from being a confident soldier to a guy that couldn't hold a job down, lacked direction, lacked self-esteem, lacked that camaraderie, because that Civvy Street, didn't have from the military. And Blesma sent me away on a trip, and I went to America with the Wounded Warriors, and we were up in the mountains in the Rockies, and I asked a few of the guys what they were doing with themselves, and 3 of them had been on a film. And I said, I'll have a piece of that, get me on a film set. And so I then started going on the film sets as a wounded soldier. I did a bit of stunt work. And then I was invited to do a play last year with the wounded veterans, marking 100 years from World War I. And it recreated my time in the military. It was this band of people coming together, very intensive work environment, the rehearsal process. Everyone's got their own adversities, but you're coming together on that common bond of we're going to get this done, we've got a message to sell. And then I also realised, because I've been through a near-death experience and recovered, there is a message of resilience there. And rather than being sat in the pub, drunk, telling a random person next to me that story, the performing arts and presenting yourself in a professional manner, you can deliver that message to a broader audience. So I come to the play. I'm very, very lucky to come on board for this. And what I find very difficult about the play, or very challenging, is that it's my message. Most of the stories in there are me. My family have been through it, my young children are going through it, and every time I experience it, and it's the toughest challenge. If you're going to do performing arts, and it's something that's personally happened to you, that's the ultimate challenge, and if you can deliver that, well to an audience, you've delivered the message. So for me, it's like I've ticked all the boxes by doing this. And hopefully going forward, the Soldier Arts Academy is a platform where I can bring other veterans into it. You know, the performing arts isn't this fluffy, cuddly thing that as roughy, toughy veterans think it's, oh, no, it's not for me. Actually, when we all wore uniform, we were all actors. We all performed. You know, we all pretended to be sergeant, colonel, sergeant major. We're all just people at the end of the day. And we're just humans, and we get hurt. Okay? Good enough?
You're captivating me. What are your roles in Soldier On, and how much do you draw on personal experiences when you're performing?
So I've been given the role of TC. He is a flight engineer in the RAF, and he went through a catastrophic situation where he was what we call a base rat, a guy that works in the camp and goes out on tour, doesn't expect to be in the front line, and all of a sudden he's launched into a helicopter, and the helicopter comes under fire and then crashes in the green zone in Afghanistan, and he finds himself in a situation where one minute he's sat behind his desk, the next minute he's fighting for his life. And I think that is the ultimate shock. And when we deal with anybody who goes through adversity, it's, you know, you're driving your car to the office one day and you end up in a multi-car pile-up. It's that I think they're the ultimate challenges, the ones that you don't expect. And I looked at the character and I thought, you know, this guy he's gone through some real challenges, and it's that psychological hit. And the backstory is his relationships broke down, and as the play goes on, he's this quiet character. And it gets worse, and it gets worse, and you see him. But then at the end, there's a turnaround, and the play finishes on, as a resolution, and the message is, you know, everybody, we're all strong, and we can get through this. You know, life does go on.
I'm going to speak next because mine's the really important bit, isn't it? I don't have a part on stage. I am the assistant producer, but only for Canada. My Christmas list for Father Christmas is that one day Jonathan Lewis might let me play Colonel Tom. I hope it's going to happen next year, but we'll see. So I do the boring logistics bit. So I had to pick up this crew, this happy band of brothers and sisters from Pearson International, make sure that they got into the right place at the right time, and I have to sort of keep a welfare officer's eye on them to make sure they don't overplay it. I do logistics. It's really, really boring, but it's really important. But logistics is not a dirty word, is it? It's not.
No. You can't win a war without logistics.
Back to actors.
Oh, I'm the actor. I'm the male understudy for the senior characters. So it's brilliant as a new, more mature actor. I mean, I spent 30 years as a Royal Marines Commando, joined up as a Marine, went through every rank up to the rank of captain, so I left. So the performance I've had to do all through that time, and with the roller coaster ride of operations and family life and everything else, you have to perform quite well. So running your own family ensemble and then coming here and being an understudy for 4 different characters means that really it's wonderful, because they're individual person, and you know, and the characters are so unique. But those characters and the stories they table, it's the same as like Kirk said, I've experienced all that, or a bit of it, you know, whether it be in operations, whether family life, and the trauma. So even though, as an understudy, I'm waiting for the big hitters, I'm studying Tom, 4 different characters. I'm waiting for them to sort of have a small trip so I can jump in and take over. But when I watch it, and I'm watching the play, I haven't, in my sort of like 4-year career as a professional actor, I've never seen a play that holds the audience and brings them together with the cast on a roller coaster. And I've been in play. I've played Tom's character when we've done a tour in the UK, and I'm watching it continually, day in, day out, rehearsals, being part of it. But every time I watch it, it takes me on an emotional ride, and it gets very smoky in there. And you know, and I near crying with laughter, but also I'm nearly crying with whatever smoke is in there. But it's just such an emotional story, and it will resonate with every person that comes to watch it. They'll be thinking about this play for weeks afterwards. It's incredible. But that's my bit. I'm the understudy.
One day,
your time will come.
Soldier On is about veterans and their families coping with PTSD. As an actor, you're recreating incidents on stage which you've experienced in real life, which we kind of touched on already. What challenges does this create for you, and how do you cope reliving what your characters are going through?
I mean, that sort of rides on from my last story. The characters that I play and the storylines in the play, I've experienced all of it. So when you do come to it and you're reading those words, you've memorized them, you take it on board, you become the character. But I don't have to dig far back to get that real life emotional experience. And it really does come to the fore. Even just looking into the eyes of other characters, there's memories of those people you've lost, and it's incredible. So to play those characters with our life experience, you could say, oh, it must be easy. I say, but it's not easy, because when you're in the forces, you build up a resilience of going, right, this is it. So your traumatic experiences are, pretty excessive, but you go through, you do it. Being an actor, you've got to come back in and you've got to use emotions with, and experiences where people lost their lives. And am I cheating? Am I cheating? Am I bringing that emotion? Am I using that emotion to be an egotistical actor? And that was really hard for me when I became an actor. But as I get on stage now, I look to those and look to my friends and my comrades and family members I've lost, and I go, no, I'm doing this for you. So it just draws them closer to you and brings the emotion out so much easier. If I'm even feeling it now, I don't tell Cassidy that, it gives me such a hard time, you know what I mean? But it really does. It helps me in my pathway transforming back into life. But it's good to tap into those real emotions.
I haven't acted on stage in Canada, but I did a piece of Colonel Tom in front of a veterans organisation back in the UK, and it was about a funeral scene for someone that the commanding officer, Colonel Tom, who has a stroke. I had a stroke, but not in service, after service, and it brings a whole load back. The reason why I was captivated by the script is Johnny had, I think you'd say, privileged access to piece together these veteran stories. And it's got every character under the sun in there. And there are a couple of scenes, I've seen it 10 times in the UK and 3 times here in Canada so far. There are a couple of scenes that I know they're coming. Sorry. I know they're coming, and yet it still gets me every time. Anything to do with the family, relationships, relationship breakdown, and the impact on children. But I would just caveat before people think that it's not for them. This play is not about self-pity. It's not about, oh, poor us. It's not about victimization. This play is about an understanding, I think, of the impact of what families and servicemen have been through, an understanding of it, and time for reflection. But you will laugh as much as you cry on it, and you'll leave without perhaps 100% solution, but it'll leave you with a better understanding. If that increases awareness and gets people talking about this issue and this disorder, as it's termed, then that's a good thing.
So I came to see the play in the West End last year, and I was, open-minded about it, and I'd been told by a few friends. And you find that a lot of, films and plays that are about the military, as a veteran, they don't really hit the mark. You think, and you look at them and you watch a war film and you go, oh no, it wasn't quite like that. When I came and saw Soldier On, every aspect of the play hit home. It was real, and Johnny Lewis has done his research. He's interviewed veterans and wives and family members, and I went I physically, over the 16 years of service, been through the breakdown, the bereavement, the injuries, that sacrifice of being away. And for me, what a lot of veterans struggle with and family members struggle with is after service is coming to terms with what they did. Because in the UK, we've got a real issue with talking about it. The veterans' charities are there, but the government seems to be, they're not hitting the mark with looking after veterans. So the play is very good at keeping veterans' issues in the public eye. The 2 wars on terror have finished. Iraq and Afghanistan have come to an end or a closure. And the general public, they're moving on. We've got Brexit going on back in the UK. But the veterans community, they're still struggling. There's massive homelessness, mental health crisis within the veterans community in the UK. And we've got a perfect storm going on of that. And the play keeps them issues in the public eye because they've not gone away. And like the Americans had in the 70s, the post-Vietnam era, we've got going in the UK now. We had 15 years of high-intensity operations. Many, many thousands of soldiers and their families have gone through that. And on a daily basis, their veterans taking their lives. I feel hugely privileged to be able to perform the role as authentically as I can. And if that just educates that one person in the audience who goes, I'm going to help I'm going to go and fundraise, I'm going to go and help combat stress, who's a charity for mental health, limbless veterans, you know, whatever, because it's not PC in the UK to talk about the forces at the moment, because we've been through some contentious conflicts, but that doesn't escape the service people are just people, and we were there to serve our community. So difficult, a very difficult play to do as a performing artist. In my last year of service, I buried 12 of my colleagues, and to come to terms with that and the ongoing mental health issues I had of it as a result. If I can then get to a point in my life where I'm performing and on stage and then walking away feeling proud about it, then I've recovered and I've gone on to do better things and used it as a vehicle to, go on and help others. Cool.
Wow. What have you learned about PTSD from this play that your military service didn't teach you?
Can I start off while I've got the mic? So yeah, in the military, we don't talk about it. In the play, one of my role is I am the guy that's been through this trauma, and I close down and I can't speak to people, I can't speak to my colleagues, and to report to the MO about that is career limiting. And it's a fact. If you report with a mental health problem, you don't get promoted. You go on hold. And within the veterans community, within the forces community, there's this stiff upper lip. You stiff upper lip, you're going to crack on, guys, we're going to get through this. And there's a certain aspect of that. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, when we go through these traumas in our service. And, it's about the military understanding that in order to look after its people, there needs to be the counselling, there needs to be that ongoing mental health resilience. They're starting to do it now. There's resilience training going on within the service community while they're in service. And I think there's a massive message the veterans community can deliver back to the forces, because after service, that's when we can talk about it. That's when we can go to counselling. That's when groups of veterans can come together and say, hey man, I hit the bottle. I did the drugs. I nearly ended it. And we can all sit there and go, we're not bad. It's just a journey we're going through. And if we can turn around to that other guy and go, listen, I've been there, and the old adage, help them out of the hole. That's what it's about. Helping each other out. Jamie.
PTSD in the round, and actually the impact of transition from one life to the next. Really, I think two takeaways. The first is that the impact of leaving the forces, either prematurely or voluntarily or through injury, whenever it comes to people, it's the best equal opportunities equality and diversity. The PTSD doesn't seem to care. It doesn't have to be triggered by an horrific event activity. It'll get someone, whether they're old, young, tall, short, rich, poor. Rank has no part in this. I'd say. And the second thing from the play is just a reinforcement. I sort of instinctively knew it was there, but there's a setup within the military to look after the wives and the dependents left behind, particularly during the operational tour. It's the longer term impact afterwards that's really struck me that Johnny's brought to life. It's the living with the day-to-day impact and the issues associated with PTSD long after the causal events, the event or cumulative events have passed. It's the enduring bit and the impact on families and children that's really struck me.
With my exposure to PTSD as such, I was involved with the Commando Brigade from 9/11. That was it. Everyone watched it on the telly, and I was like, going, "This is going to change our world forever." And it did. So from that point, I first went to Afghanistan when we first then I come back from there. I went straight into Iraq and then back out from there. And before that, I'd been in Kosovo, we'd done Ireland, so we were continually on operations. And you don't realize, you're just running with it, you're cracking on with it. But my first exposure to PTSD was just seeing it in real life. We came back from Iraq. We lost my unit, we lost 8 guys on the first night, we bang instantly. And it was a pretty traumatic experience, but it's quite surreal. So you think, they're going to show up. Something happened. Something went wrong there. But it didn't. They're dead, gone. So when we came back from that operation, from the war in Iraq, we came back. We had some time off, And when we came back, and one of my guys, who's one of those stropping, focused Royal Marines commando, and he was like, a good 2 foot taller than me, maybe like, 20, massive guy. And he came back and he looked like a 10-year-old boy, and his eyes were like, I said, and just instantly I was like going, that was it. And I seen it for real. This is it. This has transformed a person's life. We all felt, we all had the emotional roller coaster, but something blocked there and stayed there. And he's still with us and he's cracking on, but that stopped his service career. And I have to say, I'm a Royal Marine, and before Afghanistan, we were already looking at, trauma management and PTSD as it was, and we were already at that stage starting to consider it. So when we went to Afghanistan, the first time we had guys that had been trauma trained, and they would you sit down and chat, and initially you were going, oh, this is this new thing. But we've been running with that, and I think we're not perfect in our management, of identification of PTSD, but also of, treating it as such. But it's definitely moving forward, and play like Soldier On, that advances it further completely, because that understanding that it's just real life issues, and rather than sort of tagging it with PTSD, I think every serving person who's been in a combat zone is affected. If they're a human being, will be affected in some way. But it's that measurement and management, how you resolve it. And I always picture PTSD as a timeline. And when you come through this traumatic issue, again, first responders, anything, as soon as you hit that traumatic incident, everyone else, right? You have the emotional roller coaster that comes with that incident, and then you move forward and carry on. But if you can't, and your memory, everything goes back to that incident, and you can't, you stay on that timeline. And that's, and that's it. And for the guys that I've seen it with, that's it. They can't move from that. And the only way they can get away from that is to go to drink, to go to that. The confidence, their self-worth, everything just starts dissipating. And, and I've seen it, but it's still that focus, and you've got to take it, that's happening, move on, and always try and look forward. But my education and understanding of PTSD is I under it, but I'm not the master. But I respect it, but I also respect it in every single person I meet, if they do. And they don't have to be service people, because people are human beings. Yeah, that makes us humans, I think.
If you had seen Soldier On before enlisting, would it have altered your decision to serve in the military?
I think I would be more attracted. And again, it's that resilience. As soon as I've seen it, I'm going, it's adventurous, it's dynamic, there's lows, highs, and that's what the play's about. But again, it's like Tom said in his interview, the old, when you're a young man, I wanted that. That was my destiny. I was going to be, I'm an Irishman, I'm going to be a Royal Marines commando. And that was it. So that was my destiny, and it happened. But you don't know what's going to come from it. But still, you can't turn back the clock, can you? So you've got to just move forward.
I think it would have attracted me. Not the PTSD per se, but I would have picked up. I'm a fifth generation soldier. Father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-father, cousin, uncle, all in the same line and the rest of it. So I sort of pretty well knew that I was going into it. I went through a dodgy phase of looking like Rob Smith of The Cure, wearing makeup. I thought it was a new romantic. My father's horrified, but I got over that. So I was always destined to. I think what I would have picked up, which Johnny captures so well, is the banter and the instant, the rivalry, but friendly rivalry, the race for top dog, Cass, as in Woody. No, Woody, not Cass.
Yeah. No, you were right the first time.
That bit is really, really attractive, and that is what I get from hanging around the Soldier Arts Academy, and that's what I get from watching the play. I think I would have been concerned about the PTSD issues and the effect on families, but I would have focused on the positive side of the play, and there's bags of it. It'll make you laugh as much as it makes you cry.
Right, let me get this one. Right. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to be quite opposing to this. So I joined the military during a peacetime era, and we were peacekeeping. We had the Balkans going on and Northern Ireland, and then with Iraq and Afghanistan happening, it changed the military's role. We were going into these high intensity operations, and if I rewind myself to 16-year-old Kirk, who was going to sign up to the military, and then I went and watched the play, in the current climate in the UK, I wouldn't go anywhere near the army. I wouldn't go anywhere near the military, because what it highlights is the lack of care that the MOD and the military has done for its community. When you join the forces in Britain, they have this selfless commitment. You become a service person. You essentially, you're going to put your life on the line in the ultimate case. And what's happened with a lot of my colleagues is they've gone to to conflict. They've lost colleagues and friends. They've had their own mental health hit. They've lost families have broken down. And I see so many of my friends out there in society that have just dropped off the radar. And it is this. It's like, we did this. Why? And it's like they've just haven't. They're chasing the tail. They signed up for these wars, yet they didn't think about building the hospitals, and they didn't think about the aftercare. And this whole this thing about the politicians making decisions yet not following through on the long-term thing. And there's a massive recruitment crisis in the UK. The British military are really struggling to recruit at the moment. And this play, I think all of the blooming military politicians and the military high rankers need to come and see the play, because it gives them an insight as to what's going on in the veterans community and where they got it wrong. There we are.
Yeah.
Answered.
Soldier On provides an intimate look at the struggles our veterans go through while bringing awareness to the audience. In today's world, do you find there is a lack of respect or remembrance for our veterans? And if so, what can we do to rectify this?
So yeah, we just marked 100 years from World War I, and we have the Remembrance Parade in the UK and the Poppy, and this is very unusual. The first year, post 100 years, where it's no longer really about World War I anymore. There's 100 years gone by, and the vast majority of the population haven't seen conflict. They're not directly involved in it. It's always remote now. It's over in the Middle East. It's over in these other countries. And all we're seeing in the media is the negative results of these things, destabilization and, migration problems as a result of our, the decisions of the wars. And, it's that thing. It's that, the lessons learnt from it are massive, yeah. Do you want to answer it? Go for it.
Yeah, I think remembrance is probably the right way to start, and actually that's where you and I met, and that's you. All three of us were on the Globe stage, and that was really, really special. I think UK PLC does Remembrance every year pretty well, and people have got their heads around the fact that it's not just World War II. There are veterans, and we're remembering the fallen from every campaign. My concern is still, and it may not, and I don't wish to plan for another operation. My concern is still that when Afghanistan and Iraq are parked in people's memory and they become as foreign to the next generation coming through, as in foreign in terms of understanding, as, say, Korea, Vietnam, Malaya, Borneo. You say Borneo and Malaya to people now and they just don't know what you're talking about. And actually, it's almost happening with Northern Ireland. All three of us served in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. You talk to the younger generation now and talk about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, they don't actually know what you're talking about. My concern is with those who have the physical injuries, hopefully we will have cracked that nut. But my concern is, as the conscience of Iraq and Afghanistan in particular, the wars of the last 2 decades fade in people's memory, then actually our ability to look after veterans and remembrance will wane as we lose the social conscience.
With that, I mean, I'll support Jamie in this one. For me, it is remembrance. It's remembrance about sacrifice, suffering from, it isn't just, it's just whole communities. This is whole, this is national, international. I mean, with Canada and the United Kingdom, they've shared so much of that trauma over, for centuries. So it's definitely about remembrance. But what I must say is, as a veteran, I chose to do it. I'm a volunteer. It's not I've been conscripted or anything like that. I chose to do this. Am I a victim now? No, I'm not a victim. So I chose to do this. That's it. I just want you to bear in mind and remember those people that did make that choice, but they make that sacrifice for you. Mm-hmm. And it's that enduring thing. I just think people should remember. There's no glory in war, and I never want to see glory in war. I just want to see remembrance and respect for people that sacrifice things, and that ultimate sacrifice is you know what I mean. And there's a certain, I'll not tell the story of the play, but there's a character within the play which, it's like your conscience. It stays out the whole way through the play. And that's one of the emotional piece for me, because that is all my friends. That's all those people you've buried. And I'm going, and that's it. And I will always enduringly remember that. And it's not like a religion. It's not like, no, you must be this, you must be this. It's, no, just remember, these are human beings and respect them. And again, that respect goes across the fighting, sort of the trenches. It goes across the board. It's sacrifices. We don't believe in war. Why do we have to do it? Why do we do it? It's madness, but it'll always happen. And, you know, for the foreseeable future, you know, we're moving on with technology and that, becoming slightly more surgical, but it's still trauma. It's still like loss, still everything. But I'm not a victim. I believe remembrance is just so important, I think, and it keeps us back to being humans and going, we don't want to do this again. You know what I mean? And that's it, and you remember it. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. Thank you for your service and thank you for your time. And it was just absolutely humbling to be able to speak with you, and your stories gave me goosebumps. And I just
hopefully I get a couple of snippets out of that. Yeah.
Just thank you very much. And I think everybody needs to go see Soldier On.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
without a shadow.
Yeah.
It is the play of the year in Toronto.
Oh hey, have you hit the subscribe button yet? Because I'd hate for you to miss more videos like this one.